Well, hello. It is Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on the East Coast. Okay, so thank you and welcome. This is Laquita Joseph with Copper Penny Coaching, and I just want to thank you for tuning in to watch me once again on this wonderful Wednesday evening. So, tonight, let's just jump right in and talk about it. So, tonight we are talking about how to focus on problems that you can actually fix or change in your marriage. So, I just want to say hello to all of my peeps out there. Hello, Yolanda, and who all is watching with Yolanda. Thank you. I appreciate that. And so, yes. So tonight, I don't know, this might be a short session. We'll see how long it takes me to get through this material. Hello there, Marquita. Hello there, Ruby. I'm happy to see you all out there tonight. Yes, once again. So, again, we are talking about how to focus on problems that you can actually change or fix in your marriage. So there are 7 areas that are typical for conflict in the marriage, and we've talked about these before. They don't typically change. These are basically the primary areas where couples have trouble in the marriage. So these 7 things starts with having work stress, problems with in-laws, money problems, sex, housework, digital distractions. That might be a new one, so we may not have talked about that much. Maybe we touched on it a little bit, but to basically call it out as something that is a typical or has become a typical conflict in the marriage. And then also having children, having a new baby can cause conflict in the relationship. So tonight I'm going to go through these 7 areas of conflict and just talk about, solutions to those things and, how a couple can solve that problem if they're dealing with it in their marriage. So the key here is to give you some solutions, some things that you can take away, a few nuggets that maybe you can apply to your relationship, or that you could share with someone else, then they can apply to their relationship. Okay? All right. So first of all, this topic and this subject has been broached by Dr. John Gottman, and Dr. John Gottman is the founder of the Gottman Institute, and he has what they call the Love Lab in Seattle, Washington. And so what's happened is he's done thousands and thousands and thousands of studies on married couples, and so that he literally watched them. They come together, they live in this lab, and they interact, and they basically watch and see how they interact with each other, the things that they say, the things that they don't say. They also take temperature and gauge, just when stressors are coming within their body, but maybe they're keeping calm, they're not saying anything, but you can kind of see that from the pulses. So they actually connect them and hook them up, and it's really like a laboratory where he's studying marriages and how successful they are. And so he has this book. It's called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And so in his book, he talks about things that couples can address that are solvable. So there are solvable problems, and then there are unsolvable problems. And so the gist of it is to have couples focus on the things that they can change rather than focusing on things that they cannot. Because, just like anyone else in our lives, if we are focused on the things that we know we have control over, then we're more successful. We become more frustrated and irritated with things that are out of our control that we cannot do anything about. So why put all your energy over there? Why not put your energy in a place where you can make a change and you could benefit from it, you and your spouse, in your marriage? So to do this though, right? So in order for someone to be able to, or a couple to be able to change these things, they must first have a deep understanding of each other and their relationship and what they want in this relationship. In order for this to work, they have to have a feeling of security and safety, in the relationship. So why is it that these conflicts come about? It's simple, very simple, because they have different ideas about the topics. So those 7 things that I just called out, every person comes in it with a different perspective and a different viewpoint on it. That's one of the reasons to have some premarital counseling before you get married, because this gives you an opportunity to talk about these things so that you can air them in advance rather than get into a spot or situation in the relationship where you're kind of caught off guard by something that maybe the other one expects or wants or don't want, and so on and so forth. So it's really important to talk about it up front. So these things are an issue because you do have the differences. It just happens. It's 2 different people coming together into a relationship who have decided that they want to commit themselves together, and they're trying to merge their 2 different lives into one. So, but the problem is, so if there's a conflict though, that is a never-ending conflict. It just keeps going on. It's perpetual. It just never ends. You're always having an issue in this particular area. If you are in that type of a situation, it's probably almost impossible to solve the problem and save the marriage, because of the problems being so perpetual. It doesn't matter how much time that you spend on it. If it's a perpetual issue, like it just never goes away, then you're not going to be able to save it. So you got to be comfortable living with the other person's ongoing differences. So you got to know that, okay, we're going to have these differences and it's okay. You're going to have the differences and you have to say, okay, can I tolerate this, right? Can I live with this? Hopefully that's a yes, because you married this person already, right? So you don't want to be married and now you're coming back to say, well, I don't think I can tolerate this. I can't live with this. And sometimes it does happen and it's okay, because sometimes we don't know. Not everybody went through premarital. My husband and I did not go through any premarital counseling before we got married. We had to learn on the fly and we had to adjust on the fly. And so a lot of people are doing that. And so, if sometimes it happens that you are not able to adjust to it, that's just the reality of the situation. And it's all about each couple's relationship. So no 2 relationships are the same. It's not going to be resolved the same way. And so you have to understand that you have to find your own footing and you have to go in it together. So the first thing, talking about work stress. So number 1, work stress. First of all, when you come home from work, you want it to be a place of peace, right? So your marriage should be a place of peace. So you don't want to come home and bring all the stress from work home to your spouse. If that's the first thing and that's the only thing that's consuming the relationship, like that person, you can't even get in the door. You can't say anything, good evening, how was your day, or anything without that person just blasting off everything, to you about everything that went wrong in their day for that particular day. So, that just doesn't work, because all it does is add additional stress onto the marriage and the relationship. So it's kind of like a balance, and you have to create some sort of boundaries and ground rules about, what do you do and how much do you talk about work when you come home, right? So you need to find a schedule or create a schedule so that you can gripe about your day. So then that way you can get it over with, get it out the way, and then that way you can move on and talk about other things. So the solution to work stress and bringing it home is, first of all, you have to be able to acknowledge that perhaps you need time to yourself to decompress when you come home from work. Maybe you don't, so two of you are working, maybe one person likes to talk about what happened in their day. The other one may not, and they don't want to hear all of that. Maybe they've had a rough day also, but they don't want to talk about it. And so maybe they just need their space and need time to just decompress. So sometimes you just need to acknowledge that and say, you know what, I'm going to need some time. When I come home, maybe, I just want to take a few minutes, maybe 30 minutes just to kind of sit here, reflect on my day, get rid of it out of my head, clear my mind. It may be something that, maybe just watching some mindless television, some comedy, something just to make you laugh, to take your mind off of that day, taking a walk, taking a run, jog, whatever it is you like to do, or go to the gym, or even just meditate, just to unwind for the day. And then once the two of you have been able to just decompress, unwind for the day, then maybe you come together and now you can share and talk about your day without it being so stressful, it being such a big deal. And yes, sometimes there are things that are going on in your job that maybe you do need some extra support from your spouse with, but you just got to be able to know what that balance is, because sometimes it's just to vent and you just need to get it out, and that's okay. And and maybe sometimes it's deeper than that you're dealing with, and you just need some guidance and maybe support there. But having that schedule and having that understanding with each other to understand, okay, when do we talk about these things? Do we just blast everybody with what's happened in the day? And sometimes, we might dominate a conversation, right? So if we're just coming home and we're dumping all of our stuff on our spouse, they don't want to carry all of that either, and maybe in reverse, you don't want to carry their junk. So let's just be mindful of that. This next one, the second thing that one of the areas of conflict is in-laws. And yeah, that can be a big deal. In-laws can be a big deal. And sometimes you learn and you grow and how you interact with them. They have this saying, there are always these jokes and stuff about the mother-in-law, and the son-in-law. But to be truthful, a lot of the conflict comes with the wife and the mother-in-law, because sometimes, you have young men, guys, whatever, who are really, really close with their mothers. And that separation is a big deal coming between that relationship. And that's how it's seen, as though, the wife is coming between the relationship of the son and the mother. And so, but in this, when you're dealing with in-laws, you as a couple have to develop this sense of we-ness. It's about we. We meaning me and him, me and her. That's it. We are the we. So it has to be clear that, it's us. We are the couple, we are the unit, and we have to stand in solidarity with each other when it comes to that. So the problems with, say, the wife and the mother-in-law is really, due to perhaps some differences that they have, so that, they may have different opinions, they have different personalities, they may have different life views. And so that can create conflict when that occurs. And then what happens is the more and more time that they are spending together, because now that, that son is married now and has a wife and a separate family, separate life, maybe they're spending more time with his parents and mother and such. And so now these differences are coming out, and now it's creating this conflict. So the husband, in most cases, are caught between the two. So it's like it's a battle for his love and his attention. I pray that one day I don't be that way. I'm working on it. I'm close to my boys, so I try not to be that person. But, hopefully I'll be a mother-in-law one day, and so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, this is how it should happen when they get married. So the solution to the in-law problem is this. the husband, he must side with his wife, period. That's simple. Although it's probably hard for that son, to do that to their mother, right? It feels like they're abandoning her or whatever the case. But the truth is that he has to make that decision. He cannot teeter, on both sides, playing the middle of the road or anything like that. He has to stand firm with his wife. That's the truth. So they must establish what they call the we-ness effect. It's about us. He and his wife must have their own routines. They create their own rituals. So even though maybe these are the things that, his mother always did or how they did it and all this stuff, doesn't matter. They need to create their own. Maybe they will copy some of those things and bring those into their marriage as well, but they don't have to. It's up to what they decide as the couple. So it's very difficult to happen, but it has to happen. So they will have to break away from that family if that's the case. He has to, they have to be able to stand firm on their own relationship and what they believe in that's right for them and for their family. So one, you cannot tolerate any contempt from your parents towards your spouse. So that's a no-no. So you have to be able to have their back. You got to stand up for them. No matter what, you have to stand up for them and say, I have your back. Sometimes that's tough for people to do. And so, sometimes that can become an unsolvable problem because in some cases, some are not willing to stand up and do that and say, this is my family. But if you are serious about your marriage, that is what you have to do. And you have to make it clear, not, to both your parents, not just to the mother, but to both the parents that they need to respect your relationship. So the third thing is money. So money is always conflict. It doesn't matter whether you got a lot of it or you got a little bit, right? It doesn't matter. Money can be a conflict in a marriage. That's just one of the primary things and issues that, couples face. And that's the truth, because they have different values about money, and the way that they perceive it or they see it could be very different. So it does create this conflict. Sometimes it's a symbol of, either it's safety, especially if you grew up and you didn't have a lot of it, so okay, I got to save all my money because it's a safety net. If anything were to happen, I'm afraid and fearful of being broke and poor again, right? So you can have that thought process. And then you have a source of power. So some people think about money in the terms of it's powerful and how much power they can have. It could be controlling and things like that when they use money. So those are things that you have to think about when it comes to your relationship. So you must understand what is the role of money in your marriage? How is it perceived? What is it that you plan to do with it? What's the purpose that it's serving? Not just to pay the bills, but for other things, but typically over time, the money issue tends to go away for a while, at least, because eventually you'll kind of get used to it. If you stay married, then you'll figure out a way to manage the money together. And so that's not so much a problem over time. However, what happens though over time, things change, everybody evolves and, certain things come up and it's different. And so things like planning for retirement, or if you have job changes, maybe you having to pay for your children to go to school, to college and things like that, or you might be having to take care of your elderly parents. And so now money becomes another issue in the relationship. So by all means, the solution to that, you have to have a clear budget. So, there's just no way around it. Everybody needs a budget all the time, not just some of the time, but all the time. And it should evolve with you because things do change. If you change jobs, not always do you make more money when you change jobs. Sometimes you might choose to take a pay cut. If you take a pay cut, you need to adjust the budget. Or, certain things just may not be as important. You may say, I'm going to retire early. So now you have to look at your budget, because now that you've decided to retire early, you need to understand, how are we going to still meet our needs while not making this income that we have? Or if you're having an elderly parent that you're taking care of, now you have new expenses that you have for them. Even if they may come with something or whatever things, it's still going to cause or cost you as a couple something in this process. So it's something to be talked about. So you must work as a team. Always, when you're dealing with your finances, work as a team. You should both be on the same page when it comes to, what you're budgeting, how you're budgeting, and what you're budgeting for. And so one of the tips I will say, that before you put that plan together, then you need to express your concerns, your needs, and your fantasies to each other before you put a plan together, so that both of you are clear of your desires. So, if you have this idea, when I say fantasy, meaning these are my dreams, these are my aspirations, the things that I desire to do. So then that way you're clear, like, I want to save money to, move out of the country. Maybe I need to do XYZ, and so I want this money to go towards this. And then you know what things you can do. When family and friends come to you for extra things, or they want you to do this, you can say no, because it's not a part of my budget, right? And so therefore, what I'm budgeting for, I have a plan for, and we have agreed on these things, and this is what it is. So you just got to come up with that in advance, know what it is that you really want, what your needs are, and you need to express them to each other before you put that plan together. All right. Number 4, the other conflict is sex. Okay. First of all, you must fundamentally appreciate and have acceptance of each other. And what does that mean? That means you at least gotta want to be together sexually, right? So you gotta want to be with them. Like, you want to have sex with your husband. You want to have sex with your wife. You have to fundamentally want that, number one, in order to deal with this particular conflict. Because if you don't fundamentally want that, you don't want them to touch you, that problem can't be solved. So, we talked about what's solvable and what's not solvable. Okay, if you don't have that, then it's not solvable. Okay, so something that we all know is that, husbands, though, they tend to want sex more sometimes, in some cases, not all cases, but that's typically what we get. Men, their sex drive is like rampant, right? And so, that typically is one of the things. So, typically the conflict comes about there because he wants more, and maybe, she doesn't, or maybe it's not that she does not, but maybe they're just different things going on. Like we talked about, the stress coming home from work and all those other things. Maybe they're having some financial issues, because women are very emotional people, So for us, mentally and emotionally, to be able to have sex, we can't have a lot of stress and things going on in our lives. So that can impact that. But typically men want more. But studies show that the couples who sex lives are good to great, they made sex a priority. So what I'm saying to you, you got to make it a priority. You got to make time to have sex. You just do it. That's just something to do, and it shouldn't be embarrassing. You shouldn't be ashamed about it. You should be talking about it all the time. So you need to talk about your sex life. Talk about what it is, what it's not, what you would love for it to be. Talk about it. People who have these good, solid relationships, they talk about their sex life. They make time to be alone with each other, and they put their relationship first. So talk about it. Put your relationship first. Make sure that you spend some alone time. So, valuing and supporting for your friendship is key to having a long-term satisfaction, sexually and otherwise, right? So whether it's sexually or whatever, these things, valuing your relationship with each other, supporting each other is key to having long-term satisfaction in your relationship, whether it's sexual or not. Okay? So the obstacle that stands in the way to having a happy sex life is really the difficulty in talking about it. Couples shy away, they're afraid to broach the subject. They don't want to talk about it. But the solution to the problem, here's the solution, is to learn to talk about it. Talk to each other about sex in a way that both of you feel comfortable about it. You feel safe. You feel like you're getting your needs met. Everybody needs their needs met. So talk about it. Let's talk about sex, baby. All right, let's do it. Number 5, that's conflict, is housework. Ooh. Now tell me about that one. That one is a toughie. What it is, you want to create a sense of fairness and teamwork when it comes to the house chores. But I tell you what, that can be something that can just get under your skin, because I can say personally, it's like I like things to be a certain way, and when they don't do it, it frustrates me to no end. And so, but over time, I have learned to just ignore it. I don't know how that happened, but I have learned to say, you know what? It's not the end of the world, and I'm not going to do it. If they're not going to do it, I'm not doing it either. So it's like, okay, that's our happy medium. So, you all have to come to that happy medium. So it should not be gender specific. So when it comes to household chores, it shouldn't be gender specific. That means, that the woman, she's supposed to be in here cleaning and cooking and all that kind of stuff. Because, there's still a lot of men out there who are really old school like that. And that's what they think. They believe that, that's the woman's place to do that. And that is not the woman's place to do that. That is our weeness place to do that if we're taking care of our household. I know it's a hard one, but honey, that's the truth. It is one of those things that is not the case, because, women are going to work every day just the same. So there's not a thing for women. And I know men would say the same thing. They be like, well, why don't you get out there and cut the grass and, all those things. That's true. And I think if we were single, we wouldn't think twice about it. We would do it, right? And vice versa for men. If they were single and they were living in the house by themselves, they would have to do the household chores. So we have to find a compromise. Maybe that compromise still comes to the fact that maybe he still does all of that brute work, mowing the lawn, taking the trash, doing those type of things, washing the cars. But there may be a balance of what also needs to happen inside the house. Because the difference in the two things is this. If you're doing household chores and a woman doing household chores and she's the only one, she's doing that every single day, right? Every day. Every single day there's some sort of household chores. If he's washing the car or cutting the lawn, that's not every day. He do that like every week, once a week, every 2 weeks. Maybe it's once a month, depending upon who it is. They may not do anything. So, but he's not doing it every single day. That's the difference. So therefore, there needs to be a balance on who is doing chores and who's doing things around the house, who's doing some cooking, and you have to decide as a couple, because it has to work for you all and for your relationship. But if you're feeling some type of way about it, right? So if you're in a relationship and you're feeling some type of way because you feel like you're the only one busting your butt to keep the house maintained and all that kind of stuff, then y'all need to have a conversation about it. So the solution to this is one of you need to do more. So I'm not going to call it to say that necessarily that the man has to do more, because I do realize there are men who do a lot in their homes, and maybe the wife does not. And so he could also be the one feeling like, she need to do more. And so if that's the case, if you know that you need to do more, do more. Whatever that do more is. That doesn't mean that, it has to be a 50-50 in terms of how much you do. That's not the case. That just means that you're doing enough that the other person also feels like they have some help and that they're just not in it by themselves, and that they're spending all of their time doing this while, the other person is kicked back watching TV or doing whatever they want to do, while they're running around and cleaning and doing all these things. So you have to talk about it. Talk about what it is that you need, what is it that you're expecting to be done, and come up with a plan for that. Okay, the sixth thing, digital distractions. Woo! In this day and age, when it comes to the internet, social media, cell phones, computers, we are so connected to digital Zoom now. Everybody on a Zoom call, and there's a Zoom sip for this and a Zoom sip for that, and so it takes a strain on the relationship though. So the first thing is you're trying to determine how to maintain your connection as a couple in this digital age. What do you do? How do you manage that? And so in a lot of cases, people think, oh, it's no big deal. We're good. We're fine. Okay. But if your spouse is complaining and they say that you're spending more time on your phone or your computer, or, even guys, y'all like to play them games and stuff. If they feel like you're spending more time doing that than what you're putting into the relationship and the marriage, then it's a problem, and you need to take it seriously. Whether you agree with it or not, you need to take it seriously. And so some of the things, you have to reduce some of those distractions, and maybe you have to put in some boundaries. So the solution for this is that you establish some rules, you establish some boundaries, that the both of you can work on, that will work for you together as a couple, right? In terms of how much time and what you do on your phones, computers, and so on and so forth. And I would be remiss if I didn't drop a nugget in here and say, also, along with this digital distraction comes some of the porn that's out there. And then, and porn becomes an issue when, it's constant, it's habitual, it's not something that the couple is enjoying together as a couple, but it's something that one spouse is enjoying, and basically it just causes problems in their sex life and in other areas of the relationship. So those things, if someone is dealing with porn, that's an addiction, just like any kind of drugs or anything like that, and they have to get professional help to deal with that. Professional help if you're dealing with porn and that type of thing. So I'll put that out there if that's the case. But if you're just talking about, okay, you got Facebook and Instagram and all this kind of stuff, then you can put rules in play for that. You put some rules in there and say, maybe one example, you can say, okay, there's no texting, there's no checking email or anything like that if you're having dinner, or you out on a date together, or if you're trying to have a discussion, like you're trying to discuss something that's really important and you feel like it's important to talk about with your spouse. The last thing you want is for them to be checking their email or texting or anything like that while you're talking. You want to have their attention. You want to know that they are listening to you. And so that should be just some basic ground rules to put in place. So you establish these policies, and make sure that they are fair. Make it be fair for both of you. And you don't just create some policy because, you don't like this, and so you want this person to conform and do what you want them to do. But it has to be fair for both. Fair for both. And once you put that policy in place, you have to respect it. Both of you need to respect the policy, if that's the agreement. All right? And finally, the other thing that can cause a lot of conflict is having a new baby. Oh my God, so people be so excited, couples be so excited they're having their first baby and all these wonderful things. And yes, babies are cute as pie. You just love them, the way they smell. They have that milk breath. They smell like the sweet baby lotions and all those wonderful things, right? But when that baby comes home and you start to get into a routine, a regular routine of what you do day in and day out, that baby is like a big bomb. It can blow up your marriage because now all of a sudden you're totally consumed with caring for this baby. And it's not the baby's fault because the baby, first of all, didn't ask to come here, right? So that was your choice. As a couple, you chose that you was going to have a baby, right? It was going to be cute and, you know, it's going to look just like you, all that good stuff. But yet when they come with a big bang, and you have to know it'll blow up your marriage, you know, because what it does, you don't sleep well, you know, because you're getting up and down, you're taking care of the baby. If especially as the mother, if you're breastfeeding, then you're always the one that's getting up and down. You feel overwhelmed. You feel unappreciated because constantly you're caring for this baby, and you know the baby can't say thank you or nothing. You know, it just take everything from you, all your energy, all your time, and you know, and it's not the baby's fault. The baby's a little helpless baby, had nothing to do with it. But when the mother is doing that and juggling work, right? You got to go to work, you know, after your time off or how many weeks you had, you know. It creates stress and overwhelm in the relationship. So it's like as a couple, you have to go through this transformation, right? You're basically transforming your relationship, your marriage into something different than what it was before, because now you have this third being that's a part of your household that is going to be there. So you have to figure things out and how you're going to continue this relationship, build a strong relationship while you raise a child and take care of this child. And so you have to come together and you have to be a team. You have to tag team together. You know, basically you have expanded your team we-ness, because now your team we has become team three, and you have now your children now that are coming into play along with your we-ness. And so sometimes the husband may feel a little bit left out because now the wife all of a sudden has all of this attention and this focus on the child that typically was focused on him, or they were doing things together. They were free to just, you know, go bike riding and, you know, go hiking or, you know, go dancing or whatever it is that they enjoyed to do before. And now they can't do the things they did. And then also he probably watching and seeing her, you know, cuddling with the baby. They had this relationship and all this stuff going on. And he feels like, okay, I don't have that. You know, why is it I'm left out? But you have to create this togetherness, right? You have to create opportunities where he can also participate and be a part of this whole transformation. So I know what we used to do is we alternated nights when we would get up with the kids, with the babies. So one night was my night, the next night was his night. And so we would get up and then, you know, he would create his bond. He would get up and he would, you know, watch Sports Center and feed the baby and all that kind of stuff, or ESPN, you know, and that was just how we managed it. You know, we tag team when it came to taking to daycare. You know, I would drop them off at daycare. He would pick them up from daycare. And that's just kind of how we managed and balanced things out when it came to dealing with the children. So you have to create that team we, and you got to be on the same team, and you got to be working on it together. So a few tips I'm going to go through really, really quick, and then I'm going to wrap up. Tips to help couples stay connected if they have just had a baby, you know, and they're going through this whole transformation, right? And so what can you do? First of all, you still want to focus on the friendship that you have in your marriage. So the friendship between the two of you as a couple, you know, don't forget about you as friends and your relationship and how you are with each other. You know, basically before the baby came, you know, you had this type of relationship, so you want to have a tight bond. So then when the baby does come, you can continue that bond and you're not struggling to build a relationship at the same time of dealing with this transformation. Number 2, so you said weekly, I had a week and he had a week. Okay, good deal, Marquita. That's what I'm talking about. Don't exclude your husband from the baby duties, right? Or taking care of the baby. Because sometimes, you know, as you know, women, we're very nurturing and we want to do everything for our baby, or we feel like we do it the right way or the best way, you know. we don't trust them to handle the baby in some cases, but we have to allow him to have that time to, maybe it's bath time, and create that routine. Maybe there's certain things that the daddy does, that maybe the mom doesn't do. But it helps him to have that bond too and create that we-ness in the relationship. So so you might feel like he don't do everything right, but you got to be willing to just let him do it his way and not criticize. So let him have his time. It's his baby too. It's not just your baby, it's his baby too. And so sometimes he may not do it the same way that you would do it, but it's okay. There's more than one way to burp a baby. So he may not get it just right and burp him like that, but eventually the baby will burp and he will get it. And so, you have to be okay with that to create that bond, and so that the two of them can have that same type of bond as well. The diaper might be all crooked. I remember, my babies, the diaper would be on half of the butt cheek and things like that. So, it happens, but it's okay. As long as he got it, I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this. The other thing, you need to carve out time for each other. So make sure you make time to spend time together alone for the two of you. So you got a new baby in the house, but that don't mean that you never ever spend time alone together ever again. You have to be willing to let either your family, friends, a babysitter, or someone to take care of your child so that you all can have some alone time. It's very important. It's critical to the relationship. You want to continue to build and nurture your relationship and the bond that you have together as a couple. Also, be sensitive to your husband's needs, especially, if you're the mother who's very nurturing. You may feel like you want to or have to do all the things for the baby. And, he might be a little sensitive, might be a little jealous, I'll say, sometimes that, you're spending the time with the baby and the baby's getting all this attention. You might be breastfeeding and he's like, the baby get all this milk all the time, kind of thing, what I'm saying? And so, he might be feeling a little bit neglected, but you want to keep him focused too. You want to say, hey, you know what? Tell him how you feel about him, that you still appreciate him, that you still feel this way and you want these things with each other. But, right now you're caring for the baby. Maybe it's a time where you can't, just do what all the things that he desires and wants you to do. But you still can nurture him, let him know how much you need him, how much, he means to you and to the relationship and to your marriage. And that's the way to keep that nurturing going with your relationship. And then finally, to give the mother a break. The mother needs a break. She's exhausted. She's taking care of baby. Give her a break. This is going to help you with this conflict for real. Because if she can get a break, give her time to kind of reboot, to get herself together. Take some time off from work, or, shift your hours a little bit around just so she can be able to go. She can go do some things with her friends. Maybe she can reconnect, with the outside world, because you think about it, when a new baby comes home, the mother tends to stay in a lot. She's not in the outside world. She's home caring for the child and the baby. And so she's not having a lot of interaction with a lot of people outside of those right there in the household. So she needs that time. She needs the time to have a break and to get away. So yes, so all of these things, these conflicts that can come up in your relationship, everything that I talked about are solvable. And I gave you solutions for ways that you can solve them. So if you are dealing with any of this, I don't want you to feel like, that you're at a point of no return. Because in most cases, if you're dealing with one of these 7 things, it can be solved. It's a matter of whether or not you choose to solve them. There's a solution to it. I've given you solutions tonight. So there are solutions, and you just have to be willing to work through it. If you're not willing to work through it, to solve for a solution, then it becomes unsolvable, right? And that's what leads to divorce, where couples feel like, they just can't continue, they can't do it anymore. unfortunately. So I hope you were able to get a few nuggets out of this tonight. I thank you all once again for joining me. I am Laquita Joseph of Copper Penny Coaching. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, of course, both as, Copper Penny Coaching. Look for that. And then most of all, I would love for you to visit my website at www.copperpennycoaching.com, just as it sounds. And visit my site, sign up for a freebie. You can get a free coaching session if you desire, or if you want to send me an email and reach out to me, you can do all of that from the webpage. I thank you so much, and you all have a wonderful Wednesday night. Good night.